Just looks my face, apparently.
I hope
I'm
Jack
already
realised how
invested, let's
excited
go!
I am.
Okay. You find yourselves sat in a rickety old wagon, being pulled by 3 black horses, arranged in a very, very fancy-looking carriage. Along the side of this carriage, originally was written the word Chalaxian Tax Office. But that has been scratched and scrawled over a number of times. And now on the side of it, it says Cudworths and Sons, Reclamations. Inside this carriage sit 4 individuals arranged on the back seat of this wagon. This is a proper big stagecoach. It's designed to have treasures and various other chests and gold and things like that put in the back with a armed escort around it. This is a substantial sized carriage, but it's clearly seen better days. Even though the nation that you all reside in, the nation of Ravenel, has ceded from the Chalaxian government some years ago, before your own time, in fact, in most cases. This hasn't been looked after, and somebody's picked it up on the cheap. It works, it's a good wagon, but it's certainly not going to be any good for what it was used for before. Sat on the other side of this carriage, riding backwards effectively, is a gentleman in a resplendent coat. He has almost like a businessman's outfit, a shirt underneath, slightly cuffed with rolled corners on his sleeves, this posh, ever so slightly velveteen style outer jacket, a small cross tie bow around his neck. He wears a large top hat. He looks at you and is smiling as you bounce along this road. And then, as he spots a building pass by the side of him, he nods to each of you. Glad we've had quite a quiet and pleasant ride. It is a long journey from the capital, but you are very close now to where we need you to do your work for us. The Ravenel government has, for some time now, been trying to reclaim certain old Chalaxian estates and various other small pockets where there might be some wealth that the government can put to good use. But unfortunately, not all of them are easy to access, and as such, our organisation has been hired to deal with some of these problematic places. This house in particular is known as Zarwin Manor. Was constructed by a particular, almost a, how would you put it, a local lord, I suppose you could say, in the old ways that Chalax was built. It was built by him towards the beginning of House Thrune's rule in Chalax. He was posted here as one of the local sort of magistrates, I guess you could say. However, there are a lot of rumours that this is one of the few areas of Chalax which Chalaxian nobles which fell into serious troubles in its lifespan. Now, we've called on your team specifically because, well, you seem adept in dealing with certain paranormal style issues. We will note that the fee that we are paying you does stand in your contract. You will obviously gain a certain amount of funds regardless, but the stipend from the government is a 25% cut of anything you find in the building of worth. They cannot stretch any further. I know the negotiations were attempted on your behalf, but they believe you will find a considerable fund in this manor. It's clear to us from rumours and local legends that you are, however, going to be finding yourself in some quite considerable deep water. This building, make no mistakes, has multiple rumours regarding the problems there. We do not expect this to be easy. There is obviously some hazard pay included, and we will talk about any additional costs after the fact if that arises. Needless to say, this job comes with a certain amount of fame and fortune for your group. And making a name for yourself in the new capital of Ravenel should give you quite some considerable clout going forwards for any jobs that you might be interested in. I'm going to leave it at that. If you do have any further questions, you have around about, and he looks out the window a little bit, I would say 5 minutes before we arrive at the gates of the manor.
These rumours that we have heard about this place.
Yes.
Elaborate.
The manor has been abandoned for some time. After the original aristocrats who built the building disappeared, along with all of his family, it's been... how would I say it? It's been a site of adventurers and looters for some years. However, the number generally entering the abode matched against the number exiting. Well, the number exiting has never gone above 0. So anybody that has gone in hasn't ever come out, as far as we know.
So this 25% of the overall content, is it?
Yes.
What we declare or what we find?
It's very difficult for the government, I suppose, to identify things that you haven't declared. The only thing I would say is that the mistress of the house, when she was at least there and alive, as a known artist of quite some repute, it would potentially be very difficult to hide the sheer scale of these items that we are expecting you to find.
Also, my small friend, it's usually not a good idea to cross this particular administration, to the best of my knowledge.
We are not as we were with the Chalaxians. We are a much more open society, and the not revolution as such, the seeding from their government has given us a certain amount of scope to be better, be different. That said, the government in place at this time do have to deal with the fact that there are still Chalaxians in this country who wish they were part of their home nation still, and other various factions that wish that they could be in control as well. There are pockets and problems, and any government, as you might imagine, put their foot down a little bit. Still, it is far better and far less fraught than being governed by House Thune.
Very well. See what's left.
Is there
The last
anything...
party that went in. The last party that went in. When did they go in? How noisy has it been since they came out, or didn't come out?
Well, what I would say on regards to that is that the... How do I put this simply? The area around here, the manor itself, once sat over the the settlement of Crooked Cove. A relatively small, simple settlement. Used to work off of the sea here, fishing and various other bits and pieces, as you'd imagine. A little bit of shipping came through here. However, in the days after the manor went silent, as it were, some odd problems started occurring in Crooked Cove as well. There were various spates of violence, a couple of odd thefts of serious materials where people went missing along with the items themselves. And over time, the entire town, well, left. Crooked Cove has also not really been occupied for many, many years. As such, the number of people going into it, it's very difficult to judge when the last attempt to breach the manor might have been. Needless to say, we still have absolutely no information on anybody walking around with any treasures from Zarwin Hall. So it could be that people have been in there in the last 10 or so years. Nobody would have really reported it. But
So,
we find it very
in short,
odd.
high risk, high reward.
Yes.
Potential chance of death being almost guaranteed by the sounds of previous excursions.
I've lived a long life.
We've also worked on the principle that, generally speaking, the kinds of people going into these sorts of buildings are not educated on the issues that might arise, whereas you have at least had some training.
I see. So, unqualified equals death. Understood.
Yeah, it seems to be that way.
Very well. Any more questions?
Do we know more about the family who left? As in, did they just up sticks and go? Did they offend somebody else local? Did they...
Were they lost?
How,
in the
were they
cleansing?
great influence?
Interestingly enough, the information on that I can give you a little bit of. Certainly,
Useful, yes.
from what we have in terms of records, the collapse of the house in terms of its occupancy seems to have happened exceptionally quickly, over the course of only a few months. Initially, there appears to have been some sort of dispute between the noble himself and his wife, which caused his wife and his children to leave. But the husband, the noble himself... There we go. There's
A hero point has been awarded to Temvis.
Temvis has got a hero point. There
I
you
get the
are.
feeling we'll need that for opening traps later.
So,
Feeling very lucky.
Harold did it as well. He's using his own points to support his own group. It's clever, that.
I felt him asking the question about the family was worth one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And that is exactly what people should be using their channel points for. If you feel that anybody should deserve one, go for it. Yes, the noble themselves just simply disappeared. There's no reports of him moving out or leaving. He just seems to have stopped being at the house.
So he could still be in there.
Yes. Assume that everything is trapped, everything is locked, and everything is going to go very badly for us. Good idea.
You are talking of a situation where the gentleman in question would be considerably older. Well, again, you are the experts in this. I will not deny that you could be entirely right. I believe the last date that the manor was viewed as being occupied was 4657, so 65 years ago, 64. The cove became emptied about a year later itself.
Oh, about 60 years before the revolution. Interesting.
Well, in terms of Yes,
Succession.
it would
Succession.
be
Not a revolution. No.
not a revolution, a succession. We became
No.
independent. We became independent, Tembis.
Yes.
Would you, Tembis,
Mm.
like to start with describing your character? Considering we've done a little bit of chatting now, what do people see sat opposite this sort of new noble, I guess you could call him?
So Temvis, as you may have guessed from the voice, is slightly smaller in stature. He stands at a grand 4'3", weighing in at about 4.5 stone. He is Isoki, which in Pathfinder makes him Ratfolk. Hence the slightly ratty voice. He is dark of fur in browns and greys, mottled fur, almost purplish in the grey. It's a little bit odd. For those of you who enjoy some of the imageries of Igor and all the rest of it, that slightly unsettling gait and limb length, he shares a little bit like that. But despite his relatively small frame, his clothes are relatively closely tied to him. He's got a couple of books and pouches on his belt, as you might expect. But unusually for such a small creature, he has a large brass and bronze gauntlet on his left hand that's completely out of place. It looks sort of clockwork, but what is evidently visible, despite some of the wrappings he wears to stop himself from bumping on things, is that there are parts of it that have dug into the flesh of his forearm, such that he can't really remove it.
Okay. We'll go with Fidget next.
Looking rather shifty himself, is a goblin with white hair, a goatee, white beard, pointy ears, and pretty much dressed in a goblin-sized duster jacket, a scarf around his neck. You can't see any weapons apparently on him, but he is wizened and aged for a goblin.
Okay. Fifth three. You are muted. You certainly seem to be. I can't hear you when you're talking. This will be fun. There we go. New tech issues. We've lost...
Technical hitch.
Technical hitch. Technical hitch.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No, can't hear you. Speak loud.
Discord did a thing earlier, so it's alright. I couldn't hear anyone earlier, and that was interesting. Anyway, Fifth 3 is half elf. She's curled up on the seat that she's on. She's like literally like got loads of all these books in her arms, and she's kind of flipping through pages. Most people would think she's not paying attention, but she's been listening to everything that's been going on and then adding notes to her books based on the answers that have been coming in. She's got long dark hair. She looks excited to be going, and yeah, that's her.
Okay. And then Lucius.
Lucius is what most people would imagine when thinking of a paladin, a champion of some repute, full plate armor, shield, some sword-like weapon at his hip that he's not seen him draw yet, but it's definitely sheathed. Long dark hair, a darker, and this is for more the real world, a Middle Eastern complexion for those not familiar with Pathfinder. He is from an area to the east of this area, known as the Rudrani. He grew up in the mountains with his mother, and he is 6'2", weighing in at about 17.5 stone. For 4 armor, he's a thick, chunky boy.
So four Tempest to 1 Lucius. Giant of man.
So
And you've asked him probably on this travel his name before, and he's only replied with Lucius probably because anything else he said you didn't understand because of the fact he has a Middle Eastern surname.
okay.
And I'm not going to make you chew through that.
So, as we're focusing on these people, these individuals who appeared to be, to some extent, reputable as some sort of problem solvers, troubleshooters, especially when it comes to areas that are lost in rumor and potentially the occult in some way. Will be noted, and this is very much as a GM thing, that this adventure runs very, very heavily on investigation and research. So we will have some moments where there's just some basic book reading and book stuff that has to go on. It is handled by dice rolls, as is want for these sorts of systems, but it is built in. It is built into the process. But that aside, as we focus on this sort of thing, we can move outside of this wagon that's moving along. What we do find ourselves now is bouncing along what once would have been a reasonable road, but is definitely in states of disrepair. As the wagon begins to round a corner, the occupants of the wagon can see now a long abandoned there we go, that's worked for Lucius. A long abandoned town. Buildings are collapsed into rubble. Various bits, half collapsed pilings of wood jut up from the water and the surf as you come round this cove. And there is little that remains of the settlement along the shoreline. More importantly than anything else, though, no one can miss a lone surviving building that stands within a clearing atop an otherwise wooded bluff overlooking the town to the northeast. Surrounded by a rusty iron fence, the manor appears to have built many, many years ago. And it alone has stood the test of time. After a while, the pathway itself that your wagon is going along peters out to nothingness.
I'm trying to reserve myself because you start going, you arrive along the old road.
Yes. I said it was like that for a reason.
It is I'm getting such imagery of Darkest Dungeon.
Becky Butt has just subscribed using their Twitch Prime.
Oh, thank you, Becky. So, you round up onto this. By the way, if anybody is watching that is not subscribed, there are ads in just over 3 minutes. Okay. You round up to this. You get out of the wagon as it can't get any further, and it takes you a short walk to get to the gateway itself. The gate is a massive piece of ironwork. Bars, gargoyle sort of shaped faces at the very top, which will split and separate apart. Or at least it would have done in its heyday. Unfortunately, now in its current state, the gate itself is open, crumbling, rusted to high heaven. However, you can clearly see as you hit to this area that the manor grounds itself seem to be mostly as you'd expect, clear, open, and relatively weeded and overgrown in multiple places, but you can see it was cleared very thoroughly. You've got this wide open manor ground. In fact, so much so on this one that we are going to open up a map for everybody to look at of the manor grounds itself. Now, at the moment, I don't know if any of you can see it because I need
no token.
token vision off. There we go.
Ooh,
there you are. So you now can see it. You are down in that southern corner where hello, we have one for Fidget.
A hero point has been awarded to Fidget.
People starting to spend their points. I like this. This is good.
It's the gamers playing spending
It is the gamers playing the system. I do accept it's the gamers playing the system. I might revoke your points if you keep doing it, but
I did mine for a very good reason.
You did yours for a good reason. Yeah.
Trying to spot good reason.
Yeah. So
I'm very worried about the old goblin not being able to get any older.
To the south, you can see the on the map. You can see the actual gate itself. I'm just going to put the stream camera into directed mode so I can drag it down and everybody can see what effectively you are now seeing what I see. So this is my screen, obviously not without any of the mobs or anything on it, but I am now directing the camera. So we're focusing on this, and this is where you guys have entered. So
far, nobody's done a repeat hassle.
By the way, it looks like the points cost ain't going up. I have a feeling that this is one of those things that, because I tried to get it to work just before we started, it's not going to have worked. But there you go.
We'll not abuse it. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. Swaths are so.
Q mercenary just giving himself 50,000 hit roll points.
No, the system only lets you have 3.
Capped
Yeah,
at 3.
system is capped at 3.
I'll re-roll, spend a point. Re-roll, spend a point. Re-roll, spend a point.
You can
What do you mean I've got 1.5k on this?
You can also only ever re-roll something once. So
I know, but with the points not going up, he can re-roll every single thing he does.
Could. He could. Swaths of moss grow on the stone pillars that sit by the side of this, and there is a raw
Where is
iron
he? Any
gate.
trinkets and baubles?
So, having a look around here and checking it on, the biggest problem with this at the moment is the sort of the vines and everything that are kind of blocking your way through, because they while the gates are slightly ajar, that vines have just grown all over this thing. There are options for you. You could attempt to climb over this. It's certainly, it's high, but it's not terrible. It's certainly climbable, but it could also be forced open. In addition to that, now, the general thing for a lot of Pathfinder, and I'm going to be swinging backwards and forwards a little bit on this one, is a lot of rolls for working out information are done secretly. Okay? Effectively, I would roll them, and then I tell the players what they know. There are going to be occasions where I bypass that rule, and that is simply because I will accept that even with a critical fail, these guys know the information well enough to go, yeah, what I've recalled is horseshit. That's definitely not going to apply. On this occasion, I will allow all of you, if you wish, to roll a society check or heraldry if you happen to have heraldry, because there are a number of things on this gate which might be worthwhile looking at.
Absolutely, society.
So a society check or similar. And what you guys in chat should see, although at the moment there is the downside of this massive great box that keeps on appearing for you, is a... you should see the rolls that the players roll. So unfortunately, for some obscure reason, and I'm not entirely sure I understand it, there is stuff that's appearing over the top. So I'm going to...
I'm not sure where that party thing comes from either.
No, I'm wondering if I can minimize it and be very clever.
And I lean into, as a side note, after that, as part of my society, can I take a lean into my certain schools of knowledge on my skill feats, because I'm schooled in secrets.
Schooled in secrets, okay. So, the... As it happens, Timbus, you are the one person that kind of picks out the details of this. There is a coat of arms that sits above the gate, and you are aware, having looked at it, that this is the coat of arms by the person that effectively, in fact, Lucius knows this as well. The Paracount, which is the rank that effectively this guy had. He was a Paracount. His name was Yosef Zarwin, and he designed the coat of arms himself. It is not the original Zarwin family coat of arms. He redesigned it when he took the Paracount seal, he recreated the coat of arms for his family.
How do you spell the surname?
So Zarwin is Xarwin.
Thank you.